by another person who said, hold on, put yourself together, your son isn't dead. She forced her way into the hospital, managed to see the doctor. The doctor said they had to take a scan, and later they had to be transferred because of the degree of injury. They were transferred to the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, where we are told that some doctors performed the surgery because the bullet had hit a part of his intestine. So he's still on admission. She says that the doctors are just waiting for the wound to heal. And she tells us more about her son, who she says is not part of the protesters. And she further explains that he is a final year student and he had just come back home on Monday. When she managed to speak to her son, because she said he was still conscious, even though he had collapsed before being rushed to the hospital, he regained consciousness. And she said, but you said you were going to buy something. How did you end up among, the protesters? And then he said he was standing by at a pharmacy. He just felt something he thought was a stone hit him in the tummy area. He put his hand there, he felt blood. He asked for help from a lady. The lady said, and literally drove him away. And then he saw someone he knew, and then he called for help, and then he lost consciousness. So she's been telling us more about her son, who is Louis Ayikpa, 20-year-old, final year SHS student. I've got head of our political desk, Evans Mensah, in studio with me. I've been seeing some of your comments. Many of you are worried that you couldn't understand what she was saying because at some point there was translation that was in the middle of her testimony somewhere in the early part. We didn't really hear what the translator was saying. He was brought a microphone later. And then getting to the latter part we lost a bit on the translation. So some of you are worried that you couldn't clearly understand what was happening. But the committee hasn't gone on recess. What we are being told is that the second witness from EJURA wants to give his testimony in camera. He has security concerns, and so the committee has gone into the office to hear from him. So, Evans, people hear the expression public inquiry, and they're thinking, well, this is supposed to be done in the public. So how best do you protect somebody who has security concerns, but also make sure that the public still has some trust and confidence in the process that is being carried out?
I mean, so it's actually because of the security concerns. Remember that somebody had been killed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's Kaka, whose death we know had led to the anger that led to the protest. And they're looking at circumstances that led to the unfortunate occurrences on the 29th, which is the protest itself. You would actually expect that this will happen, because if somebody has information, for example, about some of the circumstances, right, and feels that if I disclose it in public, I am identified and I speak openly, I may become a target. It is fair to expect that the committee will say, let's hear you in camera, as in, let's hear you without the cameras on, so that we can protect your identity. In that instance, it also encourages a person to be more forthright and to be more open, especially if the nature of what he's about to say is sensitive, that may put him in danger. So this is a pretty normal procedure in any hearing, even for public hearings, especially when the nature of the testimony borders on sensitive matters involving an individual whose identity needs to be protected. And so what you will expect, though, is once they've had him, you would see you in their final report, because it's a public hearing, it will be made public. You would see in their final report how they evaluate that evidence, and they'll make references to the people. They may not identify him by name, but they'll give us a sense of who, what the person said and how they had him. So we'll get a fair sense of that. Once the committee finishes its work. I mean, the thing about the public hearings such as this, chaired by a judge, a lot of it is question, answer, you probe.
Mm-hmm.
Whilst you listen, the reason why it's done, whilst you listen as a members of the public, you form your own opinions.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's done, it is up to the committee now to evaluate everything and then come to a conclusion as to it's a fact-finding committee, what possibly happened, and make recommendations about remedy. And so this in-camera hearing will influence that. But we'll obviously will not get to know who the person is, but we'll get to know what he told them.
Said.
Okay, what the person told them. I mean, so you are shielding his identity and not what he said.
Okay.
So what he said, you will know eventually when you see the report. But who said it, they don't want to hear. They don't want us to hear. I mean, that's fundamentally it. But even in what he said, if it is very sensitive, they'll weigh it in the part of it might even be given to appropriate authorities directly, right? For them to look into it. So that's exactly in essence what's going to happen.
Interesting. And today there are quite a lot of unusual events, and I'm using unusual because we've been following this since it started on Tuesday. First off, there's been a 1.5 hour delay. We were told that the Ashanti Regional Coordinator was expected to appear yesterday. He couldn't make it, so he was billed to appear today. We still haven't heard from him. We don't know if that will happen at all. We're just waiting to hear from the chairperson of the committee once this in-camera hearing is done. But the other thing is that the family of Kaka says it will be addressing the press at 12 today. They have concerns, and if you've been following us since 10 a.m., I've been bringing you the highlights of a letter they wrote to the Interior Minister, copied the chairperson of the Committee of Inquiry in Kumasi, and Nana Hine-Berima Osei Shidia II, who is the chief of EJURA. Now, we've been also hearing from lawyer Martin Pebu, who actually thinks that the conversation or debate about whether it should be a committee or a commission for him is neither here nor there. He actually thinks that having a committee probe this will rather help the prosecution, Evans. His argument is that when you have a commission, what happens is that if anybody gives you evidence and you want to do further prosecution, you can't use that in the case of a commission. And he cited the Ghana at 50 with Kojo Pienim and the former VRA boss, Tarzan. Yes.
Rekrubobe, Dr. Charles Rekrubobe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Charles Rekrubobe. And so for him, he thinks that since the agenda is to see prosecution beyond this probe, the issue of a committee looking into this is a better option for him. We were hoping to get more on this from him, but we had to cross over to Pokwase, where the president was commissioning that interchange, Evans. But in that particular letter written by the family, they also have issues with how the media is seemingly being blamed for what happened. Let me quote their letter, point 5. They say, our apprehension of the wisdom in the committee's attempt to portray the live media coverage of the horrible events of Tuesday as somehow causative, contributive, or exclusive of the criminal misconduct of members of our security forces. We are concerned about the committee's bizarre focus on the media and its routine recourse to pejorative or prejudicial language in describing the actions of media, including suggesting and allowing the idea to percolate that the video recordings of the shootings by journalists could have been doctored. We are concerned that these instances not only suggest that the committee has already made up its mind, thereby creating a perception of bias among many people, but also that it is courting disaffection for the very journalists who put their lives on the line so as to inform the public of the same events the president described as unfortunate occurrences.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those very unfortunate events that has unfolded before the committee, and I've made the point today that the reason why this point that the family makes is so crucial is because, for me, we have an appeals court judge that is sitting as a chair, and yet that sort of the expectation I had when he was made the chair was that he would bring that expertise that we see judges exhibit when they're hearing cases, especially in the case when people are dead, into play, so that we'll see a certain neutrality, this poker face that you see judges exhibit in these matters where you can't read what you're thinking, but here, because of fact-finding committee. And then when you finish, you can evaluate the evidence. But unfortunately, we've seen the chair and the other members of the committee consistently make judgmental pronouncements in the course of the sitting, often in agreement with actors whose actions directly affected the outcomes we saw on July 29th, such as pronouncements that concludes that the committee has been set up to critique the work of journalists. In fact, there's one instance when the chairman says that when we criticize the media, they don't take the criticism, they think that they are above reproach, and that is an admission that the committee has taken a position that they will criticize the media. And remember, the reason why that is important is there are 4 groups, well, now there's 5 groups of individuals who have testified before the committee. There is the political class, so as in the MCE and then the regional minister. There is the security operatives, the military and police commanders. There is the professional bodies, 2 of them. There is a medical professional body as represented by the medical superintendent. There is the journalist professional group represented by us and of course the city reporter. And then we now have the ordinary victims represented by the mother. Now, we have a case where the committee has made judgmental, critical pronouncements about one of these 4, which is the media. In other words, the committee has taken a position already, as expressed by the chairman in one of the sit-ins, that we will criticize them. And we have criticized them indeed already, and we criticize them and they are not accepting the criticism. And so, this is on an interaction with another witness in the category of those who were directly involved in taking the actions that led to the death.
And actually at a point even told him to hold on with his criticism before they come at him also.
Exactly. That for me is very unfortunate. It just says that in everything else they've done, the only group of witnesses that they've had that they believe had done something wrong, the committee themselves believe they've done something wrong, is the media. And they're not even waiting for them to finish their work to put it in your committee, but we're going to say it now as we proceed.
Evans, we'll hold on with that for now. We'll take you back live to Kumasi. My colleague Ohiming Terry is still there for us and joins us with the very latest. Hello, Ohiming.
Hello, Bernice.
Yes, so today's hearing has taken another interesting turn. We have a witness in camera, but what we were expecting actually at 12 is to hear from the family of Kaka as they advertised. They were going to speak to the press. What's the latest on that?
Yes, for the late Ibrahim Mohammed Kaka's family, they are yet to communicate or meet the media as was earlier announced. But what we do know is that they had already communicated to the media that they'll be meeting the media around the vicinity of the Prempeh Assembly Hall, where the committee is also sitting. So once it is not over yet, the day is still young, I'm sure the family will want to meet the media. And secondly, the committee is also meeting in camera. So probably that gives some reprieve to the family to also meet the media here. But earlier, Madam Agatha Dunyina, a trader at EJURA Market, testified before the committee how her son Louis Ayipa, aged 20, was hit by stray bullets. And then he was admitted at a EJURA Government Hospital before he was transferred to the Komfanoche Teaching Hospital, where he is currently undergoing a treatment and has even gone under the knife for some surgical procedures, and expect one more procedure, as she told the committee. So I must say today's meeting was actually delayed for over an hour because the committee has to wait for witnesses from EJURA, and because they were not in, the sitting has to delay for over an hour. Usually the committee starts sitting at 10 a.m., but today's proceedings started at 11:30 a.m. Bernice.
Earlier we were told that there were going to be 3 residents appearing. One has come already. That's the woman you were just referring to. while he gave us a summary of what she said. The next person's testimony is being taken in camera. Do we have a confirmation if a third person will appear and if that will also be in camera?
For now, it is a bit difficult to talk about how the sittings will go today. But what we do know is that the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, Colonel Arthur, retired, was expected to appear before the committee today. He is not yet in, but now the committee is busy with this witness that the committee says because for security reasons, the committee wouldn't want to take the evidence in camera, on camera. But what we do know is that they've had the first witness, and then the second witness is what is happening now. Journalists have been wondering who this witness is, whether it is a female or male, but unfortunately, I can't tell. We are just, looking around, hoping to get information on this particular witness and how important his witness to the committee could be. But the chairman of the committee did announce that the information that they will pick from this particular witness will be taken into account. It will form part of details of information that they are picking from the Prempeh Assembly Hall as far as the system is concerned, Bernice.
Right, Ohiming.